Hello, everybody. It has been a minute, hasn't it? But today, I'm here to talk a little bit about two cool author's copies of mine that came in the mail some time ago. I've just been so busy that I didn't have time to make a proper launch video for either of these things. So the first of these that I'm going to speak about, that's sort of, I hate to say it put me on the map because it really didn't, but it does have a pretty strong web presence, would be Chaotic Idiots. For those who don't know, Chaotic Idiots was a project that I began back in the ye olden days of 2020, during the dark ages of our wonderful country. Water. Everybody hydrate. I'm gonna need to. Huh. So, back during the dark ages of 2020, I came out with a webtoon. Yes, surprise, surprise, my origins can be traced back to webtoon days. And that webtoon is probably still up in its oldest of forms, but I haven't touched it in years, partially because, so a little story. When I came up with the concept for Chaotic Idiots, webtoon was a very toxic place, full of so many toxic creators, some of whom tried to sit there and tell me that I had to take away my flair and what made my art style in order for me to become, you know, like a top tier webtoon creator. Let's put it like that. And they were really, really like, and this was somebody who made it to like the top one in Canva's like webtooners. I won't name them, partially because I don't remember them because they weren't worth remembering. And two, they were a bully. And so they said to me, like, they looked at my comic and was like, it doesn't hook me. You need to get rid of all your sparkles and all the things that make your art your art. You know, they were very critical and they were very crude. And what's so funny is their YouTube channel actually ended up getting hacked, I think. Which makes me laugh, because, you know, justice is served when you're a jerk to me. Justice will eventually be served by somebody. You know, somebody will come around and knock you down a peg or two. I'm not sorry that it happened. They ended up quitting their webtoon and leaving it, and, you know, they gained all this attention, and, you know, they were the cruelest people ever. They were a bully. And there were many of those people who decided to be bullies, particularly to me. And while I was creating Chaotic Idiots back during the pandemic, I was in a really, really rough place. I was severely depressed. I could barely keep my head above water. Let's just say I would not be here if it wasn't for the goodness of therapy. So I will say that no matter what anyone tells you, therapy helps. It helps you to put things into perspective. And I got some, and I'm here. So this story holds a really precious place in my heart, because it was the story that both almost destroyed me as a creative, but also saved me, because of Chaotic Idiots, I met people like Jack Morby, who you've heard in many of my projects, from Tirnanak to Narnia to Faithfully Yours Mozart. I met Emma. I met Geeks with Pens, as she also goes by. I met Sir Rabbitkins. So this I'm getting emotional thinking about the people that I've met because of this project. And so Chaotic Idiots is always the project that I would say is the most easily recognizable of mine. You can easily find it if you type it up. I mean, somehow the audio drama, which, you know, somebody, and again, another bully, tried to come in and tell me that because my audio work wasn't perfect at the time, you know, because it was flawed. I have no idea what the hell that noise is. I'm so sorry. Clearly, somebody's doing something outside. Can you not? But where was I? Oh yeah. Somebody else tried to come on board the Chaotic Idiots project. You know, they said very mean and nasty things about the cast. They attacked my ensemble. They specifically targeted Nathan Hall, who voiced Malachi for season 2. They were so cruel about things, and it pissed me off. I can take a lot of shite. I can. Like, I can do a lot of things. Like, you know, you can come at me and yeah, I'm gonna be knocked, but I'm gonna come back stronger. I'm gonna come back swinging, and I'm gonna say, okay. What was the word? What was the phrase from Mozart? He was like, speak of the wolf, see his ears. Okay. Yeah, let's do this. Let's go, buddy boy. Because I'm a fighter, and I'm scrappy, and I may be small, but I'm pretty fudge and mighty. So Chaotic Idiots is the story that has had so much opposition and so much strife over the years that it's been in existence. You know, people were not so kind to it. There were trolls, there were idiots, literal idiots, who came on board and tried to destroy me, tried to tell me that my art wasn't good enough. And I watched it happen to not only me, but to other people who were good to me and in my circle at the time. And they were just so unkind to them, and you know, it destroyed them to the point that they all stopped posting. I stopped posting for the sake of my mental health, you know, just thinking about it, talking about it, you know, it still hurts a little bit to this day. But Tiernanak and Chaotic Idiots was also the last project that I wrote before a friend of mine passed away. And so there's a lot of things with Chaotic Idiots that shaped me into the creator that I am now. And so it's a very precious story to put out there. It's about $9.99 USD. I illustrated it with, you know, so this cover I drew, you know, this is Jacob, and that's his friend Leroy. A lot of the art in the book is illustrated by me, designed by me. So you can see here's another illustration of Jacob. And here's an illustration of him and his dad. That's Malachi. Malachi has ADHD, so his dad is neurodivergent too. A lot of this art, you know, what there is of it, I designed and drew in Medibang, so that's my choice of digital art design is Medibang paint. So, and I created this, all pieces of art that you see in this novel. My favorite one, Sir Rabbikins on Instagram voiced the Dar for me. She was amazing. She brought this sweet little being to life. So when I read Adar, and Jacob, I always think of her. Sir Rabbikins, like, really championed Chaotic Idiots, and it meant a lot to me to meet somebody on Webtoon who was actually, I met a handful of amazing creators on Webtoon who were not jerks. For all the bullshit that I went through with Chaotic Idiots, I also met a lot of creators who stuck around long term and who continue to love my work and love the characters that I've created, and love the world that I've made, and, you know, even for the little indie book nomination that we didn't win, you know, my friend Rabbikins was like, oh yeah, I'm voting for Chaotic Idiots, and I'm like, that's so sweet, you know. Like, I have good people around me, you know, who I gained because of this project. And even if it has its hardships, I should show this off. This is my personal custom-made Jacob Faust Funko. I made him with some self-drying clay, and I feel like, I don't know, they were like paint markers or something. You could get custom like blank Funkos off of Amazon. I got the male one, and I just made little Jacob Faust because, you know, he was so important to me. I always imagined being able to make merch perfectly, and he's imperfect, you can see. He's got his little teddy bear because in the story Jacob loves his toy Mr. Bear. And I attempted to make a backpack, and I didn't do too well. There's still some green on it because it was like falling off. It needs glue probably, and then for me to just go in and then, you know, do a redrawing. But this is Jacob. He's got a little infinity symbol on his shirt. My little purple vampire. And I suppose when we're talking about Chaotic Idiots in this section, I should probably mention what Chaotic Idiots is about, at least the graphic novel, because there have been different incarnations of the story. It's always sort of kind of has the same beats. Ever since 2020, when I revitalized the story to sort of tackle like the high school days of a young vampire boy and his band of neurodivergent and disabled fae friends. So Jacob is a sweet 16-year-old autistic vampire. So it's low fantasy. It's a low fantasy story. And his family escaped from their lands, Tir na Nog, or Tir na Nog, as I've called it. It can be called different. It has different names depending on what region of the world that you're in Europe. But I called it Tir na Nog, so that's Tirnanoc. But of course, in popular fiction, you might hear it pronounced Tir na Nog. So Tirnanog, Nog. And it is the land of the Fae. And Jacob's family comes from the land of the Fae. They were nobles of the great vampire kingdom. And so a great and terrible tragedy befalls the Faelands. It is collapsing, literally. It's going to basically collapse in on itself, and the Fae have to leave and come to the human realm. And so, you know, and I've had people ask questions like, do the humans have anything to do with, you know? No, it's all Fae. There is lore there, but not lore that I think is like necessary for me to explore. Because the real mainline story is that it's about Jacob and his friends and some of the things that they get caught up in. Now, in this first book is all about Jacob sort of learning to navigate friendships that change. And some of that is inspired by my own young experiences as a woman on the spectrum who for a long time didn't know that she was on the spectrum, probably up until my college days. And, you know, so in this story here, Jacob has a group of friends because I don't like it in autistic fiction, and a lot of autistic fiction, when we don't give the autistic characters, like, friendship. And there are too many books out there where the so-called friends are mean to them. And yes, it happens in your young life. And yes, you're going to have people who really aren't your friends. But I think a lot of stories on the spectrum don't really encourage friendship of those who are autistic. And this is my personal feeling. It doesn't mean anybody has to agree with me. But I feel like when I've read all the stories that I've read, the disabled character never has friends around them who champion them. And, you know, I experienced loss. To sort of talk a little bit, I experienced a really, really tough loss a few years ago, and this month is actually the 4-year anniversary of that loss. And that loss defined how I wrote my stories and how I viewed relationships. And the one thing that I remember, and I tell this, you know, in private with other people, but I'll tell it here. Friendship was redefined after this loss came into my life. I didn't have friends around me who were there to lift me up when I fell into the pits of grief. And so when I was reworking Chaotic Idiots into graphic novel book form, I thought about that. I thought about the stories where something happens and everybody leaves. The autistic protagonist, or they leave the one who's in grief and in pain. And I sat there and I said to myself, you know, the people who left were the real bullies. And the people who came around me, the ones who inspired Jacob's friends, were the people who stayed and lifted me up. And they are who I thank in this book. And I'm going to read their names because this book wouldn't exist without them. A special thank you to the following neurodivergent voice actors, to the artists who love Jacob and Leroy, and to the few non-neurodivergent creatives who made Chaotic Idiots as a series possible 6 years ago when my whole world felt as if it were falling apart. Emma, Jack Morby, Nathan Hall, Cole Paffenberger, Aaron Ralph, Sir Rabbitkins, Anna, Gabby, B-Drop, and so many voices from across the globe who made this project come alive. I do not thank the bullies who left. I don't thank the people who turned their backs on me when I needed them. But there are people in my books who are inspired by you, and I hope you know that I appreciate the chance to have villains, because that's what you are. That's what you are. You are villains. Never hurt a writer. You just give us ammo to turn what you did into a story, and to make known what hell you put us through, what hell you put me through in particular. So Chaotic Idiots is a deeply personal story, you know, and Jacob experiences the challenges of friendship and what it's like when a friend becomes distant for no apparent reason, and they don't tell you what's wrong, and they stop answering your calls, and they hurt you. I'm gonna read the scene when it happens, and I actually cried writing this. Where is it? Comes home from something, and it's a really, really tough sequence. So he's his father. He's with Malachi. There goes my stuttering. He's with Malachi Faust, his dad. And Jacob says, "Dad, can I ask you a question?" "Sure." "Do you think I should apologize to Leroy? Would that make him my friend again?" "But you didn't do anything wrong, kiddo." "There's nothing to say sorry for," Dad continues. "I know, but I just feel so guilt-ridden. Like when I try to do something right, I still do it wrong. And people like Callum and Leroy see me as doing that wrong thing over and over again, and I don't mean to, because I really, really care, you know? I know you care, son. And Lucas, Adar, and Gwither all know you have a big heart too. But Callum and Leroy, they're on a different sort of wavelength than you are. A different wave? You mean they're surfing in a different ocean? Metaphors can confuse my brain a little sometimes, although I do understand some too. I'm not entirely an idiot, you know. I'm not stupid at all, just because I don't get it right away. Well, not exactly, but you can think of it like that if it makes it easier to picture. You and Callum and Leroy all ride different kinds of waves, and those waves don't always line up. It's like parallel lines. The two shall never meet, even if they walk the same path. So, Leroy and I are parallel. We walk the same, we both have difficulties, but we can't meet in the middle because we ride different waves. That makes sense. My dad gets it. He knows how to make metaphors make sense to me. And it does make sense to me how me and Leroy are on different waves and that those waves may never touch because we have different ways of thinking and dealing with tough things. And it doesn't mean my way is wrong or his way is wrong. It just means we face obstacles in ways that will never meet in the middle. Like the parallel lines. And sometimes the point is that when we show kindness to others, it tends to irritate their own inner struggles. So you mean Leroy hates that I'm kind to him because he himself is not kind? Like Callum wasn't kind? In a way, yes, and your former friendship to Callum was another matter entirely. But I think for a time Leroy was kind, unlike Callum. However, the blatant reality is, son, that people change. Sometimes those we think are friends may not be some years down the road, and the people we never imagined to become friends can amaze us. He hugs me tight as I feel the tears rolling down my face and quietly sob into his side. I don't want him to stop being my friend. I don't want change. Why can't things stay the same, Papa? Why does it have to hurt so much? I know, kiddo. I know it hurts. But even in loss, there will always be new doors waiting for you to find. Don't be afraid of the pathways that can open to you, even when one starts to close. Yes, Papa. I'll try to walk through the new doors. Because there's always something new around the bend, right? That's right. I promise it'll be okay, kiddo. You'll always have me, your mother, and Uncle Aaron. We're not changing, and we're not going anywhere, I nod. Yeah, I'd be sad if I didn't have you. Well, I'm not going anywhere, kiddo. Not for a long time. It's really a story about learning to deal with friendship and challenges to friendship and, writing a story where Jacob has more friends than just one who leaves him, and then suddenly you're left with a protagonist who's like, what's wrong with me? Well, I wanted a story where he had neurodivergent friends and they champion him and they fight for him and they meet together for coffee or tea and they're like, what's that supposed to mean? Why don't people just say what they want, what they mean, you've got Adar and Lucas, who are Jacob's friends, and you've got all these different kinds of people who he meets throughout this story. And I'm excited about book 2 when I can get back to drawing, because I had a little bit of a technical trouble, and my the device I was using to draw died. It died on me, it cracked, it fell on the floor too hard, and it cracked. So I don't have my drawing tablet anymore, and therefore I can't add any pictures, and I can't do any doodles. Which is really, really sucks, because I think we need a story of empathy, like the story of Jacob Faust. Jacob's one of my favorite characters, and I love the friends around him because they're all so unique and different. And I think that, you know, there are so many stories out there where you have autistic protagonists being sort of like taunted by their bullies, and nobody stands up for them. And I sit there, and Jacob is that character who like, he eventually learns to have the courage to stand up to the bullies himself. You know, he's been stood up for by his friends. And he's like, oh, my friends are so much braver than me. I wish I was brave like they were. And eventually he learns to be brave and to stand up for others who are bullied. And I think we kind of need that in this day and age, in this society where there are so many people bullying those who are autistic and they're in power. And they're using their platform to bully us. And so I think we need a story like Jacob that says, yeah, you're gonna be knocked for a minute, but then you get to stand up to them too. So it's a precious story, one that has so many layers, and so much happened when I wrote this story. But it's one that I really hope that you'll check out on Amazon, and you'll buy it, and I hope you are encouraged by it, because I wrote Jacob as a way to say that you can write good autistic fiction and fantasy, and they don't always have to be a stereotype. You don't always have to stereotype the boys. You can write them with emotions and feelings. I know so many young autistic men who I'm like, you are not whatever they're putting on the screens. And Jacob is meant to break that stereotype of the autistic boys, with kindness and compassion and gentleness and love. He loves so deeply. He is written to love. And he means so much to me because he was the first time that I reclaimed my voice as a young autistic woman. Now, the second book also carries a lot of weight to it. This came as well rather recently, and I've just published it recently. As a matter of fact, the hardcover is coming out on February 17th, I think. So I'm excited. This book was 9 years in the making. It is one of my oldest manuscripts, and it is beautifully imperfect. It's not a perfect novel. I've tried to go through and fixed it as much as I can, and edited it and made changes, and hopefully when you pick up, you know, your copy, it will be as beautiful as it can be. But this is called Cast of Thieves. Now, backstory, Cast of Thieves. When I was in college, I challenged myself to write a story in under 2 years that was over 500 pages in length. And I did it successfully. The original draft was over 498 pages. By 2026, it is over 610, with the final edits made. And that's not counting the afterword. You know, if you don't count the afterword, it really is somewhere in like the 598 pages in length. The hardcover is only 548, because hardcovers are only allowed like a certain amount of pages, at least with what I was doing. So Cast of Thieves is a steampunk Victorian fantasy, and about two adult men who are caught up in the arms of fate and destiny. There's fae, there's gods, there's, you know, political intrigue, there's thieves. This book was very much inspired by my love of things like Assassin's Creed Syndicate, The Order 1886, Carnival Row, Ripper Street, and If you like Witcher, you might enjoy this. If you like Thief 2014, you might also enjoy the aesthetic of this story. If you like a book boyfriend who's British, has a piercing gaze, you also might like this. Water. Need the water. If you like alternative history, if you like, you know, fantasy and fae, and particularly like Welsh and English folklore, interspersed and mixed in a way that actually respects the folklore and doesn't turn on its head and make it like something sexy and stupid, this story here was crafted over 9 years, and I almost didn't put it out into the world because I had a moron in my life who made me hate myself as a writer after I wrote this story, and he was cruel about it. And what's funny is I've published eight novels in under 2 years, and he couldn't finish a manuscript in under 1. So I have some fame, he doesn't have anything. And if you'd like to know, that person was, for lack of a better term, the closest thing I ever had to a boyfriend. Funny how that works out, doesn't it? He's no longer in my life, thank God, because he was toxic. And this story here was reclaimed by me after somebody tried to go in and edit it and change it to suit their vision of what a story should be, when it was never up to them to begin with. It was always my story. So, and they tried to get away with it, and I wasn't happy about it. You know, they tried to destroy, really, Cast of Thieves, and then I took it back. I can tell you that it's going to be a 4-book series. It takes place in 1870 and in an alternative 1870. And the hook is that there is no longer a monarchy. Queen Victoria has died. The royal bloodline wiped out, and a society of greedy nobles sort of comes in and has like a government takeover. And in this Victorian fantasy London that I did a lot of research into in order to make it, you know, as true to that history as possible while also deviating, you know, because, you know, I wanted it to be very sort of almost Dickinson a little bit, you know. Like I said, Assassin's Creed, Syndicate was sort of like one of the biggest inspirations for wanting to sort of write a Victorian sort of like fantasy novel a little bit, while also honoring the actual history, you know, that was there, and the dialogue and the lingo and everything, you know, is very much English. So this is Cast of Thieves, and it's thick, but I got the cool news, you know, I got the sizing right for the first time. So this one, you know, I've worked on for so long, and right now it's currently on Amazon for $13.99 USD. The hardcover will be a little more expensive. It would be about $24 USD. So, if you like things like Assassin's Creed, this is my Jacob Fry. If you like stuff like Assassin's Creed, and you enjoy alternative history, this novel is worth it. It will be worth it because the sequels dive into some really interesting territory. And, you know, if you liked Witcher, Victor just might be your next boyfriend, your next bookish boyfriend. But it holds a lot of that time that I was beginning to reclaim my voice for the very first time as a young author. I honestly, it's so funny. When I wrote this, I remember saying to someone, I was like, when I hold this novel in my hands, I'll be an author, because it would have been something that I wrote on my own, that I wrote without anybody sort of like coming behind me and thinking that they knew what I was saying and telling with my voice. And, you know, it was the novel where I decided I didn't want anyone to come in and make edits, that I was going to learn how to do the editing myself. And that it was going to be my story, and that you couldn't touch it. Nobody could touch it. And then somebody tried to. And I had to go in and save it and fix it and bring it back to the place where it was. Bring it back to what it was supposed to be, which was my voice, not yours. Somebody tried to go in and edit it without my permission. And you don't do that. You just don't. I don't appreciate it. I am my own editor. I always will be. So Cast of Thieves is my beautiful baby. I designed the cover art myself, much like with on the majority of my books. I've designed this in Canva. So, beautiful novel, beautiful book, that you can get on Amazon for $13.99 USD. And that is about it. You know, successful book launch for the first time. Oh, and, you know, it even has a really beautiful spine. I wish that I could do what is so popular these days, and that is like that sprayed edges, because I would love for it to be red, you know? I would love for it to be red, like the outside of the cover, but unfortunately Amazon doesn't offer that. So if you can do it yourself, hey, go for it. Do it. Spray the edges red. I don't mind. That'd be cool to see. But if you're looking for... people are like crying out and like, oh, the mass market paperbacks are, the chunky books are going away, all the books are thin. Don't worry, just come over to me. I write over 500-page books. I can't write anything else. I'm sorry, I've tried. Well, that's not true. Chaotic Idiots is only 141. And, I should announce that I have my very first autistic female book coming in April. So it's called Empath's Guide to Getting It Wrong. It'll be my very first female autistic protagonist. And Mariah, let's just say, is a character who is she is a little spitfire. Mariah is if you've ever read any of the quiet autistic-led books, and you're like, they don't really tackle bullying, and they don't really tackle like autistic empowerment, and you want that, Mariah is that. She is a little spitfire who says what she says, and when bullies confront her, she looks them in the eye, dead in the eye, and goes, huh, was that your best shot? Are you here to just, was that supposed to be an insult? She punches back, verbally, with her words, and she stands up to them, even as her own world is falling apart in some ways. She stands up to the bullies, and she shows them that she doesn't take no shite. So, look out for that coming April 6th and April 8th. And then I should say one more book announcement is I have another book that I designed in Medibane. It's a manga. It's a short manga. It had to be unfortunately bulked out with a preview of Chaotic Idiots, partially because again, my tablet died on me, and so I wasn't able to continue doing art for this manga, but as soon as I get my new tech, as soon as I get new tech to start working with me, I will return to drawing, and I will return to creating this manga. It is called Dearest Little Husband, Darling Little Wife. I created the panels in 3 days for a contest, an international contest that I did not win. I wasn't even probably considered in the running to win, even though I tried. And the prize money would have been nice. I probably wouldn't have a new tablet now if I had that prize money, but you know, such is life. I tried to win this contest. It didn't happen, so now I am publishing the short story. And it's just a short little sweet story about Constanza and Wolfgang. And I thought it would be fun to have, it's all ages, it's very age appropriate, anyone can read this, you know, unlike Faithfully Yours Mozart, which I will tout forever and ever and ever. It is 18 plus. 18 plus doesn't always mean spice and sex. No. 18 plus just means not for your child. I have consenting adults going through intense situations in this story. It's not, it is not for your kiddo. Whatever you might think. So, Faithfully Yours Mozart. One of the editions for Faithfully Yours Mozart actually has new cover art. For its books, I think I made some new cover art for the standard edition. They're really pretty. I hope you buy them. I love them. Very much so. So gorgeous. There are Regency style covers. With like fleur d'ors and floral patterns. That happened recently. And a version of Faithfully Yours Mozart in this size, so like Cast of Thieves, the 4 to 5 year anniversary editions, you can get those as well. They have a pretty gold cover on them. So, oh, I should say, Cast of Thieves, age range 17 plus. It looks backwards in this video, but it's 17 plus. That's on the cover. If you pick this up for your child, I'm sorry. It's right there. Just saw a video the other day. Cast of Thieves, 17 plus. Chaotic Idiots, I would say 14. I would say 14 to 17 years of age. You know, like there's nothing too terrible in this in this series. You know, it is for teenagers. You will know when my books are for children and not. I don't mix. I don't do that cartoon cover mixing bullcrap. You'll know. Trust me. And I'll make it apparent because it will have an age rating on the front cover. Faithfully Yours Mozart. Oh, I should say age rating for Empath's Guide is aimed at adults. It will have, you know, a warning on the back that says, not for your kid. Don't pick it up for your child. It is for young adults because of some of the coarse language that is uttered by the characters in this novel. So, not for your child. No. And I know there are some people who will go, Faith, but, you know, it's not your responsibility. It's the parents. Yeah. Look how well that turned out for everybody else. You know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. You know the books. You've seen them on the shelves. I've seen the books on the shelves. And I'm like, great. This is going to cause problems. So, Chaotic Idiots is for your teenager. Cast of Thieves is not. It's not for your kid. So, that's about it here as far as book updates go. I mean, I'm always writing. I'm always doing something. It's been a rough time recently. I had a podcast quit on me where I was supposed to talk about all these cool things. And they quit on me because they were having technical trouble on their end and they blamed it on me. And they were like, we can't hear you, Faith, so we're gonna have to end the session, like, right now. Oh yeah, they quit on me. They left me, didn't even try to fix what was wrong on their end. I've had 4 podcasts drop me. I've had a million others not even consider me. So if everybody and their mother is like, Faith, why aren't your books more popular? Well, not for lack of trying. Nobody wants to hear me. At least that's how it feels. I'm sure I told the story of the ridiculous podcast that was like, does Faithfully Yours Mozart have a happily ever after? Because my podcast listeners, oh God, they just love a happily ever after. Like a bunch of 5-year-olds. I'm like, you want a happily ever after? I said this in my email. I was like, you want a happily ever after? Go read Cinderella. You picked the wrong author. If you want a happily ever after. Sorry. I'm not saying my books are going to end in tragedy like every single one of them. But it's going to end realistically. Happily ever after? Am I writing you a fairy tale? I don't think so. But such is life. I haven't hit a podcast yet, with the exception of one that has allowed me to at all, share anything that I am as a creative. And it's disheartening. So it's disheartening. Really is. Trying to find some form of success on Fable, looking to connect with fellow readers and writers and, that sort of thing. Because, I don't know, I mean, that seems to be where the majority of social readers are at, is on Fable. I'm really trying. But sometimes I do look at all the manuscripts I have in the works, and I sit there and I think to myself, are these really worth writing if nobody's going to pick them up? If nobody's going to read anything new and take a chance on things that aren't fast fashion novels? No, you have all these people out there who complain about, what they call fast fashion books and fast fashion trends and all these things, and I'm sitting here going, well, I don't do that, so why don't you come and pick up my books? Why don't you give me a few more reviews? Why don't you take a chance? Because I'm not a fast fashion writer. Or you want to just sit there and do what I saw all the autistic advocates do when I was making Chaotic Idiots, was complain. There's no representation out there that looks like me. Really? Then go ahead and make it. I did. I cast myself as Jacob Faust in my own audio drama series because nobody would cast me to play an autistic lead because they don't believe I'm autistic enough. I've gone for autistic roles, believe it or not. And I've sat there and they've been like, well, great enthusiasm, but we're not moving forward with your audition. Right, because you don't think I'm autistic enough. Because I don't sit there and I don't make noises, or I don't have an obvious, expression to my voice. You don't think I'm autistic enough to be in front of a camera. So I wrote Jacob Faust, and I was autistic enough for him. I did it myself. While the rest of you complained, I made it happen. While the rest of you complain about fast fashion novels, I'm making them happen. The anti-fast fashion novels, I'm making them happen. 9 years for this book. Took me 9 years to write this. Chaotic Idiots, 6. Faithfully Yours Mozart, 3. My Stephen Haggard novels, 3. 3 years. 9, 6, 3 years. So, are you going to keep complaining that nobody's not writing the, fast fashion novels, or are you going to finally give me a chance? Because I'm right here. I already do them. I'm just waiting for you to pick them up off Amazon. Because that's the only platform I can use without breaking my bound bank. Well, I hope that this has been informative to somebody. There's 76 of you on this YouTube channel, and if you'd like to start engaging, I'd be more than happy to see your comments and your likes. If not, sometimes I question why you're here. But hey, we're here. There we go. Case in point. I am Faith Jacobs, signing off.